Okay, so I beat the DLC, started New Game Plus 2, got the Blood Fiend's arm, and then they nerfed it. Also, apparently, allegedly, maybe they nerfed the lightning bottles, so let's go back to that build, try it out, see how it is after the patch. But that means I gotta burn some larval tears and some time to bring the Perfumer build back, so let's try to optimize it. Okay, we really just need 22 strength for the Blasphemous Blade. I don't know if like maybe something requires intelligence, I'm just gonna put a little bit there. Soft caps, kind of interesting. You can take Faith to 99 and it will just give you damage, but at 80, that's kind of when it ends and it's more backloaded towards 80. Dexterity also soft caps at 80, but if we use a Great Rune and we get +5 to everything, I think this is going to be pretty good. Also, we got a lot of larval tears from going into a New Game Plus, so I can keep resetting without too many problems on the build. We don't have Alexander Jar Shard, but just Word Jar Shard is good, Sacred Scorpion Charm, Perfumer's Talisman, then kinda whatever you want to put here. Your Physick mix can kinda be whatever as long as you have the Lightning Shrouded Cracked Tear, so the Thorny Cracked Tear is the only multi-hitting effect that works with the Rolling Sparks. If you're going to go for a summon, like, okay, summon, drink the Crimson Tear, go back to full health, and then you're going to be safe, but also just like several minutes of, I think, 12% damage negation. And if you want to be a total glass cannon, there's a Bloody Tear that drops from one of the Furnace Golems that drains your health, but then just gives you damage. I just like Ritual Shield Talisman and Tank Build to make up for skill issue, which is why I aim for 60 endurance, so I can just have a medium equip load for all this stuff. The damage vulnerability on the Scorpion Charms you can also offset by going with the Great Shield. You can also give up a little bit of damage by going off of the Sacred Scorpion Charm and then going into an Elemental Talisman that you need. So into a fight like Mesmer, you want the Flame Drake Talisman +3 over the Sacred Scorpion Charm because it means you're not taking more physical damage, you're taking less fire damage. So if you're alive for more hits and you hit them 2 more times, that's going to be like the difference maker. Now, everyone's talking like the perfume bottles are just completely gutted at this point, so let's see what the damage is into this dude. Like, it would seem like, oh man, I'm just not going to do thousands of damage per hit anymore. Like, congratulations, you don't have the double damage bug, but you can still... the damage seems the same. Like, if you're just free casting on people, and especially into larger enemies, yeah, I don't see much of a difference where you just zap. Man, that sucks. I didn't even touch my mic and it decided to go all crackly for no reason, but I wanted to keep that part in to kind of show the live reaction of, oh, wait a second, this hasn't been nerfed at all if you're using it as intended into large enemies where you were seeing the most success anyways, because throwing it at the ground was always inconsistent. It's like, oh, if I get the multi-hit at once and I hit them and I get the double damage bug, then crazy things happen. But most people weren't using it that way anyways, because it just feels miserable. It's like, oh, miss 4 times, and then you get the big shot, miss 4 times, and then you 2-shot the boss. Like, that's not fun, even when you're exploiting. But I think there is an upside to this being quote-unquote nerfed or adjusted in some kind of way, because now you do other things with the build. You still go Faith, and then you spin in the Blasphemous Blade, and now it's just really, really strong. Or it depends on the enemy. If it's a smaller enemy or an agile boss, well then you can just like spam Blasphemous Blade, and if you see the opportunity to do some like crazy Sparks damage, you can still do really good Sparks damage, and then Blasphemous Blade, that's the build that I use to pretty much beat the entire DLC, if not just beat the entire game once you get it. And they didn't touch the Blasphemous Blade, it's actually been buffed with the Dread Talisman, not nerfed with the DLC launch. So yeah, if you have Faith, you can just kind of run whatever and still do really, really good with it. So that's something else you can do to mix up your build. Also, it means like maybe get rid of the Lightning Scorpion Charm, put in the Talisman of the Dread, and now you can just kind of switch between Blasphemous Blade and Scorpion Charm, not have the damage penalty, and then do whatever. Or you can still all in with full damage and play the Lightning build all the same into large enemies. You can still do 9k damage to the Golden Hippopotamus. And Lightning Sparks is still like stupid spammable, and it gives you a lot of time to react and still dodge boss attacks or enemy attacks. So yeah, like, it's good. I think that's the summary. It's like, it's good, you can still use it. Now you can actually make a more interesting build despite getting quote-unquote nerfed, even though there were no direct nerfs, it was just bug fixes. So if you weren't exploiting the bug, which also works into me, a lot of people got mad at my Perfumer build, because like, no, you need to throw it at the enemy's feet, no, you need to throw it at your feet, no, everyone's using it wrong, you need to do this and that. Well, I didn't really care because that wasn't engaging or interesting for the build. So everything about my original Perfumer build still holds up. It's OP, and then you just play it as intended, and it's good, and you can just kind of slot in whatever things you want for it to find the effectiveness, and then you win. You can see after the initial knee-jerk reaction of, oh no, it's been nerfed into being unplayable, that was actually just misinformation from people that didn't understand Rolling Sparks to begin with. So yeah, big news, nerfed into the ground, does 450 damage instead of 20,000 damage. So when you see this, people are gonna go, wait a second, each hit only does like 400, so even on like a big boss hit that does like thousands of damage, now you're only gonna be doing like 1,500 like a normal weapon? Oh no, it's unplayable. No, that's absolutely not what happened here. You actually need to have the sparks roll into the enemy multiple times, and then you still see pretty much full damage. So even the part of the patch notes that says fixed a bug that caused rolling sparks to deal more damage than expected, I don't know what part of the skill that applies to, because they were also talking about how fix a bug that caused these weapons to deal double damage under certain circumstances. And that exploit seemed inconsistent, because yeah, sometimes you throw it at your feet or their feet or whatever, and then it's like, whoa, that was crazy damage. Sometimes like, oh, that was just a regular hit. And then we have the knee-jerk response to the knee-jerk reaction. Was bound to happen, not surprised, 1.7 thousand upvotes. It was absolutely busted. But I didn't even see people respond to like the one-hit damage as what was busted. That if you just use it normally, you walk up to an enemy, you target them, and then just throw like 5k damage at them, a lot of people were upset about that being too strong, and that hasn't been changed at all. So yeah, it went from busted to useless. That's the take, guys, that these things are still useless. Not even close. So what they did was they made it to where when it collides with terrain, it ends the sparks instead of setting them all off at once in one location. Shooting it forward still has a multi-hit effect, and then people are like, yeah, wait a second, you actually go out and play it, especially if you already had the build because you're running it since everyone said it was good. AoE with little range that messes up big things, like every other AoE. Feels like everything else. That's what I was hoping for. Rolling Sparks was way too broken. Even though it wasn't, because again, it was like inconsistent and you had to do weird stuff. I was melting bosses with it not spec'd into any talismans or equipment because of the ground aiming, although I really like using them normally, so I'll probably end up using them still. This still isn't really that accurate because you need to spec into it to get the base damage to then exploit into like the double damage and all the other hits. So like the boss melting is also way over exaggerated before the patch. And then OP just on some weird stuff where it's like, I used to do 20,000 damage. Now it's only 450. Even though like the 20,000 damage ground firing is way overstated, you don't just walk up and do 20,000 damage. You have to do a lot to make that happen, and it has to go perfect, and you don't always get the multi-hits. So, and then again, it's not only 450 damage, it's the same damage that I was doing before the patch. Stop firing at the ground, it'll hit enemies multiple times, especially big ones. And everyone hated the ground targeting anyway. It was clunky, it was annoying, it just made it not satisfying even when you did get the big hit. Without it hitting the ground or the wall, I still did 9k damage to the golden hippopotamus, and that's without the tier power, so it just depends on how you build it. I mentioned earlier about the blood tier that gives you more damage. That's the blood-sucking crack tier that people are using, so it's like, yeah, lightning and blood-sucking crack tier. Also, some people are going for Age 1's Exaltation, so if you go Frenzy Flame Bottle, you proc a Madness, that gives you damage, then you want Howl of Shibiri, and then you can just kind of get the Madness buff, do everything else. Some people are running Rakasha armor, so if you want to go like super duper glass cannon, it's still fine damage. And then we have this question, which I answered in my original build guide because I tested it, and the weird thing is multi-hitting talismans don't work, but the multi-hitting Physick tier does work. And that was like really hard and really weird to test, but doesn't seem consistent. Also, I'm not a fan of multi-hitting with this anyways, because like, oh, if you get hit, that's going to remove your multi-hitting buff because it's a 1.5 second decay. Also, if you dodge or walk away or try to line up a really good shot and then you cast the ability, that's going to be a lot of decay right there. So it's better to have tankiness for forgiveness or other forms of damage like lightning tier plus fire tier. That way you can go like buffed Blasphemous Blade and then lightning damage whenever you're casting your bottle. But it is really nice to see that a few people early on like caught on to it. No, it hasn't been bug fixed. You actually have to aim the ability for it to do damage, and it's still good. Yeah, what are people talking about? It's still great and very viable. So people just believed a really bad test from an NPC that got wrapped up in a flavor of the patch build that they didn't understand to begin with. So So yeah, I feel like some people are unable to see beyond what's meta. Perfumes are just more balanced now, still using them, still insanely powerful. So it's not even like more balanced, but still OP. Still insanely powerful. And for like 95% of people that were just throwing it out there and not trying to go for like the weird glass cannon builds and madness procs and stuff, it's the same. I actually can't comprehend how people were saying it was a nerf. They're not tuning it, they were fixing a broken element. And yeah, bug fixes do end up being nerfs or buffs when it comes to like patches for games and stuff. But again, in most cases, like it's still an incredibly powerful weapon. People are going to say like, oh, it's gutted, oh, the bottles have been nerfed, and they're thinking, oh, that nutty damage where I just target someone and throw it at them and it just like saps them for 4,000 to 5,000. No, that's still there. But yeah, you're in the main sum. Dumbest of the dumb lurk here. I think that's what we can see from like the upvotes and the overall reaction. It's just NPCs. It's people that don't build or create anything from themselves. They see a TikTok video and a Twitter highlight and a post on Reddit, and they're just like, wow, this is exactly what that thing is, without understanding it at all. So yeah, there we go, guys. Perfume still strong. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.